Good evening, our viewers. You're watching Tigray television. Here are today's Muslim followers living in the closure of siege all across Tigray due to the security threats emanating from the attacks by the allied forces say that the holiday is being celebrated in a time where millions of Muslims are under atrocious threat. Moreover, President of Islamic Affairs, Sheikh Mohammed Adam, stated that Muslim community couldn't be able to celebrate Mawlid due to the resumption of war and the ongoing siege. Haile Gabru has more.
Mawlid, a day celebrated in the remembrance of the birth of Prophet Muhammad, is being celebrated in Tigray in the shadows of the resumption of war after the 5-month-long humanitarian truce. Members of the Muslim community say that they couldn't properly celebrate the festivity due to the ongoing siege that has been imposed for over a year now in Tigray.
Our living condition has negatively affected our attitude in general. Our children are unable to go through with their education. Many of our people have been killed and displaced. Our land has also been impounded by our enemies. The ultimate goal to this campaign is to annihilate us all. This has never been done anywhere else in the world. I'm almost 80, however, I've never heard a country sealed off from the rest of the world as in Tigray. In fact, there were wars in Israel, Nigeria and Iraq, but the situation in Tigray is quite odd and horrific. We used to celebrate holidays colorfully. We also had the economic capability to prepare the appropriate types of food then. However, now we live under threats of aerial bombardments every day.
Tigray Muslim Affairs President Sheikh Mohammed Adam says Muslims in Tigray couldn't be able to celebrate the holiday properly due to the siege imposed on Tigray on one hand and the bloody war on the other. He also added that he and his fellow Muslims couldn't be able to celebrate the holiday in open spaces due to the aerial attacks being carried out across the region.
As Tigrayan Muslims, we are celebrating the holiday in a fatal plight following the ongoing siege in Tigray. We are sealed off from the rest of the world. Mawlid is a day of happiness. We used to gather and celebrate as one Muslim community before. However, now we couldn't be able to do this as we live under threats of aerial bombardments. There are continuous drone attacks on a daily basis. We are also not able to celebrate it properly because we have no supplies at home.
He also added that Muslims are celebrating the holiday in grief as dozens of civilians are being killed and starved to death following the resumption of the brutal war declared by the Ethiopian government and its allies.
There is no place for happiness at a time where your brothers and sisters are dying, starving, and mosques being intentionally demolished in a broad daylight. The Al-Najashi Mosque in Tigray is one of the largest mosques in the world next to Mecca, but it has now been demolished. Other religious institutions were also being destroyed. We also have lost several religious leaders and followers. Thus, we're celebrating this holiday at the time that our heritages are being vanquished, looted and taken into different places by these forces.
Sheikh Mohammed also commented on the international community on refraining itself from the repeated expressions of concern and take a decisive action in those responsible.
Tigray is the cradle of religions. Particularly, we the sons of Al-Najashi in Tigray are in desperate situation at this time. Therefore, we would like to call on the international community to assert the necessary pressure on the Ethiopian government and its allies to end the war on Tigray. On the top of this, we would also like to call on the Arab countries to uphold their responsibility and help us. If not, to stop supporting the genocidal regimes both in Ethiopia and Eritrea.
Followers of different religions in Tigray couldn't be able to celebrate holidays for the past couple of years due to the bloody war as well as the siege that followed it, which has made millions in Tigray remain under fear and suffering.
Earlier today, Ethiopian Air Force repeatedly bombed the town of Shire in the northwestern Tigray. The bombardments carried out in the residential area left 4 heavily injured. On Friday, drone attack hit the town of Dongolat, killing 6 and injuring over 80 others. The drone attack in Dongolat, a town 30 kilometers from the capital, Mekelle, was conducted around 5 in the morning in the heart of the town. Since the resumption of hostilities in late August, Ethiopian government has conducted numerous aerial attacks in different parts of Tigray, causing the death and injury of civilian innocent Tigrayans. Tigray External Affairs Office issued a statement on Friday regarding Eritrea's assault against the Kunama people, a minority ethnic group in Tigray. The statement said since the resumption of the war on Tigray in August, Eritrean forces have continuously been attacking ethnic minorities as part of their two-year-long genocidal rampages against the people of Tigray. The office highlighted that the failure of the international community to stop such atrocities has worsened the criminal acts of the Eritrean government to further continue its attack against the civilian population in different parts of Tigray. His office reiterated its call to the international community to live up to its promises of never again and bring an end to the Eritrean government's genocidal campaign against the people of Tigray. The United Nations Human Rights Council adopted a resolution to renew mandate of the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia by a year, underscoring the critical need to continue documenting crimes under international law and human rights violations and abuses. The decision was adopted by 21 votes in favor, while Ethiopia rejected the renewal of the mandate. Rights groups in the United States have welcomed the decision and called on the Ethiopian government to grant access to the Commission for the investigation to be independent. Solomon Thaklai has more on this.
United Nations Human Rights Council extended mandate of the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia by a year. The decision was adopted by 21 votes in favor and 19 countries, including Ethiopia and Eritrea, voting against the motion. Amnesty International said adoption of the UN Human Rights Council's resolution underscores the critical need to continue documenting crimes under international law and human rights violations and abuses. Amnesty International's director for East and Southern Africa, Muleya Mwanenyanda, said the decision gives hope to victims of the ongoing human rights violations in Ethiopia. The United States also welcomed the renewal of the Commission's mandate, saying that it views the Commission as an important complementary mechanism to Ethiopia's domestic accountability efforts. The United States, as well as Amnesty International, called on the Ethiopian government to give full access to the Commission, including entry to Tigray and on-site investigations, so that the Commission's work can be independent, effective and transparent. Amnesty International and other different rights groups have been demanding renewal of the mandate of the Commission, considering the fact that ICHREE hasn't been able to conduct on-site investigations in Tigray. The Commission was established in December of 2021 to investigate gross violations of human rights and atrocity crimes in the war on Tigray, and it issued its first report last month, stating that it had reasonable grounds to believe that war crimes had been committed in the war on Tigray.
Bureau of Societal Improvement and Gender Equality says the International Commission of Human Rights Expert on Ethiopia should visit Tigray and meet the survivors of sexual violence in the region for its investigation to be complete. In a brief given by a consulting team of the Bureau on Friday, the team said the international community should pressure the Ethiopian government to stop committing the ongoing crimes and to allow the Commission to come into Tigray. Abel Tsagau has more on this.
On Friday, Bureau of Societal Improvement and Gender Equality gave its review on the preliminary report of the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia. The review was given by consulting team of the Bureau, Dr. Mebratu Aftu, Mebratum Fatui, and Sarat Waldbrhan. The team said it found the report limited since it was conducted without visiting the crime sites and the survivors of sexual violence in Tigray.
As far as its coverage is concerned, because of different reasons, it has a limited coverage. The internet connection problem, among other problems also, I think has limited their access to informative data and informations.
So looking into their report, I would imagine if they were allowed to come here And if their experts approach those survivors in person, I can imagine what their conclusion would be.
The experts were not allowed to come to Tigray. They were not allowed to come and interview any of these survivors face to face, check and verify any evidences, and so on and so forth. I mean, the siege is there. Their capacity to do thorough investigation has been limited, and therefore we ask for further investigation and for further thorough documentation and proving of what's happening on the ground.
The team also said the international intervention is late. It also said the international community should act now to stop the ongoing crimes being committed on Tigray and should pressure the Ethiopian government to allow the International Commission access into the region.
I say the international community has failed Tigray. I say maybe we are invisible to you, but we are here. We are global citizens, and international crime deserves international intervention.
International intervention is late, and still there must be an international intervention. It should have been demanded, and it is demanded, and it's justified.
How many women have to commit suicide before the international community acts? How many families need to be destroyed before the international community intercedes? How many women have to lose their dignity, go out on the streets and beg, or sell their bodies, or whatever, just to be able to find medical treatment or feed their families before something happens?
The International Commission of Human Rights Experts in Ethiopia has issued its preliminary report on the 19th of September, saying that it found reasonable grounds to conclude that the Ethiopian government is behind the war crimes and crime against humanity committed on Tigray.
Panel of experts who examined the preliminary report by the International Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia appreciated the Commission's report that war crimes and crimes against humanity have been committed in Tigray. However, the panelists say details of the atrocities incorporated in the report amount to genocide, and the Commission of Experts failed to call it by its name. Abraha Gabertansai has attended the panel discussion, and he has more on this.
During a panel discussion arranged by Tigray Human Rights Advocacy Network, Dr. Tigrai Birhane, Associate Professor in International Law from Legal Aid, said he found the report by the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia more descriptive than that of the joint investigation report by the UN Human Rights Commission and the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. Dr. Tigrai says the preliminary report by the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia has tried to examine the cause for the war in a broader way.
The narration in the previous report is that it starts from the attack of the Northern Command. You know, the Northern Command attack. That was the center of the gravity of the narration. But the commissions of experts, it goes wider. It was wider. It tries to see the ethnicization of the problems, the politicization of the problems, even anti-Tigray ethnic slur. There was some kind of dehumanizing words. So it tries to contextualize it from the very beginning. So there is a difference in the narrations. That's a very important way. It tries to take it in totality.
Dr. Tigrai also says the report by the International Human Rights Commission experts on Ethiopia has come up with ample details that amount to genocide, but it failed to call it by its very name, genocide. Rather, the report indicated that the experts were convinced that war crimes and crimes against humanity were committed in Tigray.
I would establish a genocide intent in the report. Do you have some phrases that indicate that there were genocidal intent? I would say from the preliminary report there are some indications. For example, from the Ethiopian government, call for a siege in Tigray from all four sides to turn Tigray into Biafra. This is a typical, textbook example of genocide. So that is, you're going to make it a Biafra. That's genocidal. Then the road going from Addis Ababa to Tigray through Afar region is their oxygen. There is no way we will allow them to get to Tigray, and they know that. That's a genocidal. The Prime Minister, he denied that there is hunger in Tigray. Denial is also one of genocidal intent to me. The Fano, they were saying that we will destroy you. You don't belong here. we will not allow Tigray to exist anymore. That's a typical genocidal element.
Mebrahtu Fatoui from Tigray University Scholars Association also presented his comments on the report by the International Human Rights Commission experts on Ethiopia, where he says the report has presented the fact that the allied Eritrean and Ethiopian forces and the Fano vigilante groups have gang-raped Tigrayan women and humiliated them, saying they were purifying their blood. However, says Mebrahtu, the Commission should have called it genocide instead of war crime or crime against humanity, as it is a typical indicator of genocide.
In other cases, the attackers express an intent to render the victim infertile by permanently destroying their sexual and reproductive health. Previously, what we have seen is the acts. One, stress, mental and bodily harm. The other is preventing birth among the group. And the third one is creating a condition by which the protected group are eliminated. And the act that we have previously seen fulfills these requirements, the act requirement of the genocide.
Asked about why the UN agency in Addis Ababa refused to assist the International Commission of Human Rights experts on Ethiopia, Dr. Tigrai said that was an irony for him.
Even the irony is there was no cooperation by the UN agencies. The very agency established to preserve humanity, it was an obstacle. It was an obstacle. That is the irony. So I would say shame on the UN agencies.
Finally, participants of the panel discussion suggested the extension for the mandate of International Commission of Human Rights experts on Ethiopia and says the Commission should come to Tigray and practically examine the atrocities on the ground.
It's my strong belief that the methodology should be as exhaustive as possible. This is mandated by the UN, and the UN could create an access to any part of the world by the mandates that it has, and at least they should come to Tigray and arriving at a conclusion without, even though what they have collected, mainly in terms of secondary data, can enable them to arrive at such a conclusion and beyond. But I am deeply convinced that they should come to Tigray and elsewhere, that they want to, and the UN should create an access to them.
Later on Friday, the United Nations approved the renewal of the mandate of the International Commission of Experts on Ethiopia.
AU convened peace talk between the governments of Tigray and Ethiopia that was planned to take place in South Africa has been postponed indefinitely. According to diplomats that spoke to Reuters, the postponement was due to logistical problems, but the AU is yet to release an official statement as to why peace talks were delayed. The organization has not made clear the time and the date of the new peace engagement. Before the postponement, former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta had said he wouldn't be able to attend the October 8th talks, but hopes for a structure of modalities and rules of engagement to be made clear moving forward. Away from their home and friends, IDP children are amongst the severely affected ones by the war on Tigray and the complete siege that followed it. Marhawi Ibrahim, 9 years old, IDP child from Bahar, Western Tigray, shares the story of his journey to Magala, capital of Tigray. He says he had to take up the most tedious and tiresome journey on foot before reaching Magala. Wintakirana has more.
Marhawi Abraha is 9 years old IDP displaced from Bahar, Western Tigray, upholding in his heart his dream of becoming a driver. He was grade 2 student right before the day he had to drop out of school and run away from home.
The day we left, Fano militants were shooting at our neighborhood. They came at night when we all were asleep. When they started to shoot, my brothers and I woke up, but my mom told us to go back to sleep, and we did as she said. But the shooting couldn't stop. Then we had to leave our home and run to one of the jungles around there, called Idris. It was 3 hours walk on foot. There were a lot of us. 3 of my friends and our neighbors, 2 were with us. My mom was carrying one of the twins from our neighbors.
Merhawi says his journey was horrible as he had to walk extensive hours on foot and he had to wait to get food from people in the village they stopped.
I was on the road with 4 of my brothers and my friends Filmon, Yarid and Nahum, and we had to walk such long distance on foot. I sometimes rest on the way after having ran a lot, but it really was tiring. People in our way used to give us some food, but I was hungry for most of the journey.
After a long distance of walking, Merhawi says he and his family arrived in Shira, where they found a car that was able to take them to Magala.
On Shira, we found a car that brought us to Magala. When we first arrived here in Magala, we got sheltered in Maiweni IDP camp. They sent us here to Sabakari IDP camp later that year for reasons I don't understand yet.
Merhawi says he and his friends are terrified to death and have to hide in holes whenever they hear the sound of a plane in the sky.
I get scared when I hear the sounds of planes. My friends and I usually run into a hole and hide there if we hear any sound that seems of a plane, and we get out right after the plane leaves.
Merhawi says he misses his home in Bakhar and finally sends out his regard to his father, who now lives in Addis Ababa.
I miss our home in Bakhar. I miss my friends that remained there too. My mom is here with me, but my dad is in Addis Ababa and I haven't met him for so many days now. My dear father, how are you? All of our family here is fine. I hope you are doing okay.
Merhawi's story is the story of many children from Western Tigray who have to witness many horrible atrocities in each of their villages, who made the most tedious journey to save their lives, spend their days in IDP camps instead of school, and hope to never spend a day on an empty stomach. A story no one has to experience in such an innocent age.
Thanks for watching. Bye for now.